Even someone like you has limits, Satoru Gojo.
What's wrong, Sukuna? Having trouble moving?
When people tell you who the most annoying characters in JJS are, you'll usually get three answers: Naoya, Yuji, or Charles. The first two are similar and honestly deserve their own video, but Charles is an interesting case as well. Part of why he's so annoying is that he has one of the simplest, easiest game plans to follow in all of JJS. He simply debuffs his opponent so that they can't side dash, and then side dash M1s them to death while they can't move. It's a stupidly effective gimmick, and while it does have its downsides, falling off kind of hard against characters who are less reliant on side dash M1s, when you are up against a character who relies on it, it's basically a curb stomp guaranteed win for Charles. This video is an explanation of why Charles is so annoying in modern JJS. So, let's get into it. The most important thing to know about Charles is his R special, which is the reason he's so good in the first place. Everything else in neutral, besides Sacrilege, it's alright. Yeah, even the counter. I think it's a little overhyped compared to the R special. Charles' R special is broken up into two parts. The first part marks whoever you have your cursor over. You do have to be in range to do it, which is pretty close up. The best way I can describe it is forward dash range, and there's a very short bit of startup, so it can be interrupted if you aren't careful, and someone goes for an attack at the same moment you try marking them. This isn't hard to get around at all though. For one, most people don't immediately go on the offensive, and you can just spend some time jumping around in neutral until you can comfortably tell that they're not going for an attack. Or you can just combo into it by doing Sacrilege, or Despair, or any ragdoll. The second part of the move is the one that's important though. Pressing R again on your marked target will force them to side dash. The direction they side dash depends on their position relative to you, and they will always side dash in a direction that brings them closer. For example, if you're on their left, they side dash to their right or your left depending on how you want to phase it. Generally, that's not the important part. What does matter is that the side dash puts their side dash on cooldown. What this means is that as long as you keep spamming this thing over and over again, your opponent can't side dash. They just can't. If you've ever played Nanami or had to fight a good one, you know how irritating the leg stagger debuff can be if you accidentally blocked blunt cut. But that thing is on the condition that you land that move with ratio on someone who's blocking or doing something. Meanwhile, Charles just gets that completely unconditionally. He doesn't need to work at all to get what is essentially a permanent leg stagger on the opponent, and if the person you're playing against doesn't know how to adapt to not having their side dash, which is a lot of people because they play these characters who don't have any options but to side dash M1, then they basically just lose. Charles is one of those types of characters where he himself doesn't really do anything that special. Despair is not that great in neutral if your opponent knows how to punish it on block. Shut Up is a good counter in M1 trades, but it can be predicted and punished. The aerial variant is actually pretty respectable, I'll get to that later. Eye-catching is more for niche matchups, and Sacrilege doesn't get you much value for landing it, though it is crazy in that it's basically unavoidable, and that does help for some matchups. But again, you don't get much for landing it, so it can't be at the core of his playstyle. What Charles can rely on, though, is debuffing his opponent to not be able to dash, and so he gets this massive leg up into side dash M1 neutral that this game revolves around for most of its characters, and most of the time, he just stomps on them. If you don't know how to play the game without your side dash, Charles will just win. It also makes Charles ridiculously good at playing passive as well, against the weaker parts of the roster. If you spam R special on Hikari, or Yuji, or Locust Guy or Todo, or Mahito, or any character whose neutral options are limited, and mostly rely on side dash M1ing, then they can't approach you. Like, if Hikari can't side dash M1, then the only thing he can do is either front dash, which is punishable on block and easy to react to, or jump on his doors for a roll or empowered rough energy, both of which can just be backdashed to remove any kind of threat. Yuji just gets forced to use crushing blow feints, which makes it way easier to M1 him out of the air when it's his only option. Mahito is limited to his moves, which are all extremely punishable on whiff, and Todo and Locust genuinely can't do anything to play aggressive. They just have to stand there and wait for the Charles to come to them and try to block and punish his M1s. Because without side dash M1s, neither of these characters can do anything. This makes Charles extremely frustrating to play against in certain matchups, because he's the one who controls the pace of the game at all times against these kind of characters. If he wants to play aggressive, you gotta sit there and try to block his side dash M1, or you just eat a free Sacrilege to the face. If he wants to play passive, you better pray you're on Ryu or Mechamaru or some other top tier character with a strong neutral skip that doesn't need their side dash, or else you're gonna have to play passive too, unless you wanna die. Even with these top tier characters though, Charles is able to stall him out and play passive because of eye catching, which bails him out of a lot of bad spots. Let's take the matchup against Ryu, which I think is the best example of this. If you waste your side dash fighting Ryu, then he can hit you with second helping, which leads into a huge combo for him, and you can't do anything about it. The only characters with a way to fight back against this move are those with counters, like Yuji, Hikari, and guess what? Charles! On another note for this specific matchup, Uncharged Granite Blast is bullet type, which Charles can counter to immediately close a gap against Ryu, and deny his zoning completely. This doesn't give Charles an automatic win of course, and Ryu's extremely high damage still gives him an advantage over Charles who's on the lower end, but it gives Charles the ability to shut down the neutral of a character who would otherwise completely stomp on an M1 merchant. Sacrilege is another one of these tools though that Charles has to win these specific matchups against better characters. Take the case of Charles versus Choso or Megumi. Megumi and Choso both have Divine Dogs and Supernova, which are extremely good moves for controlling the game, with the one downside being that if they get hit, they go away. Sacrilege lets Charles immediately ragdoll Megumi to kill Divine Dogs off, and also shut down Rabbit Escape, and it also guarantees a hit on Choso to kill off the Supernova Orb that he currently has down. The move's ability to just be a free hit, even if it does very little damage on its own, is insanely good in these matchups where just one hit is very valuable. This creates a character who automatically has a strong matchup against any of the lower tier M1 merchants because of him being able to strip them of their main weapon, the side dash M1. Then he has some pretty good niche matchups against the high tiers because of the tools he has in his kit to counter their options. The thing about Charles is that he makes this ability to control the flow of the game way more accessible to the average player, because his way of doing it is Braindead. All of the good characters in the game, like Megumi, Choso, or Mechamaru, can dominate the game arguably better than Charles, sure, but you actually have to put in some effort to learn their kits, and if you just spam moves like an idiot, you're gonna lose. You don't see a lot of people playing these characters, generally, because of that. It's harder to get results with them than someone like Yuji at lower levels of play, even though they can accomplish more when you master them. But Charles? All you gotta do is press R on your keyboard and you just cut your opponent's legs off. If you're up against someone with moves you can react to and counter, you just have to be good enough to react to them. Everything else is just a basic side dash M1 gameplay that's universal to every character in this game. Charles is Braindead. He takes no effort or skill or understanding to learn how to play him. Not even with combos, which is just 3 M1s plus shut up, plus forward dash, plus 3 or 4 M1s depending on ragdoll cancel, plus a spare. That's not hard to do at all compared to some really difficult combos like Megumi's 66 damage true combo. This is why I think Charles gets the reputation of one of the most annoying characters in the game. His ceiling is lower than a lot of the really strong characters who could be more annoying than him. But because he's so easy to pick up and get results with, you'll have thousands of Charles players running around and winning fights with this cheesy strategy that feels horrendous to fight if you don't know how to deal with it, whereas with Megumi, you even have people saying he's a bad character because he's harder to learn, and so you only get like 100 good Megumis who could actually give people PTSD. He's by far the most accessible annoying character in the game. Yuji is a close second there. Charles is annoying because 1, he makes it easy to shut down your opponent, and 2, his strength isn't in being a strong character with strong options on his own, it's that he denies the opponent from using what usually is their strongest option, the side dash. He also has that other annoying aspect that a lot of characters have, where every time you get hit, you just know what combo is coming and there's nothing you can do about it. If you've ever fought a Locust Guy player, you know what I mean. Every M1 you know in your head that it's going to be 3 M1s, clever, crushing jaws, and then you have to ragdoll cancel or they follow up with more. People hate Yuji too, because every time they get M1s, they know it's going to be 3 M1s into Curse Strikes, and then depending on the elo, it's either Crushing Blow / Divergent Fist, or they go for the Black Flash Chain and get evasive punished. These type of long combos that you can't evasive punish or generally can't evasive out of, while usually not a balancing issue, are always incredibly annoying, because it's just boring. Like, it's the same reason people like watching Jump Showdown character showcases on YouTube Shorts, but don't enjoy playing it as a game. Cutscene combos aren't enjoyable because it's boring and you know what's gonna happen, with no real evasive opportunity. Get M1 by a Charles, you might as well finish your math homework, and I'm not saying this to say long combos are unbalanced or anything, but they are very annoying and people don't like them. It's a player experience thing. On a pretty related note though, Shut Up got a shadow buff, which made it impossible to evasive out of. This doesn't work on the dummies, so I'm assuming this is a bug, but if you test it on a player, you will find that they can't evasive out of the move. Why exactly this happened, I only have theories. But needless to say, it makes Charles pretty broken right now. You will see people evasiving out of my combos in the background footage, and this is because this is Charles before this whole ragdoll shenanigans thing happened. I think it's a better representation than me going into ranked right now and bullying people with a character that is unintentionally buffed into the ceiling, since he doesn't need it to be good or annoying. But because he has it, well, if you want ranked elo, might as well play some ranked with Charles. Charles is basically the locust guy of characters of neutral. He's the most braindead of all of them, and it takes no skill to make him annoying. Does he need a rework to fix all of this? Maybe to his R special if anything. If something was to change with Charles, it would be nice if his R special had something more to do with predicting the future instead of Charles' main gimmick, besides infinite counters, being the ability to disable side dash. It'd also just be more fun to fight. His combos are annoying too, sure, but there's a lot of characters like that, and that isn't the core issue behind his reputation. Of course, this isn't really a suggestion so much as me pointing out what I think the issue is, so it's a little bit like those make the game fun suggestions that don't do anything on their own. If you want to leave an idea in the comments, or if you think Charles has some other issue besides his R special that I didn't address, then go for it. I did hear about everything else being annoying as well, like Shut Up being a strong counter, or Despair being hard to block, but I think those are strong enough to be good while still being reasonably fair for the kind of game JJS is, and they sort of play into Charles' prediction gimmick that I personally believe he should lean more into than the no side dashes thing that he actually is right now. However, we're at the end of the video. If you enjoyed watching, then consider subscribing since it does help me out a lot. I'm Noob Eternally, thanks for watching, and have a good day. Bye.